Hello, everyone. This is another episode of BroTalk, open dialogues about life, mind, and money. Thank you guys so much for being here. We really appreciate it. Today, we're going to talk about poor people mindsets. Number two, financial traps that hurt middle America. Also, how to increase your money in your career and your job. And last but not least, rich people mindsets and how we are building that and how you can build it as well. So please, guys, come join our conversation. So this first one, I think it's going to offend some people. I really think so because it's
This
a
topic?
Yeah, the first one that
Okay.
I think I might offend some
Why?
people because we're basically going to. How do I say this? And I think.
I was about to say,
It's going to offend people because people don't like to hear the truth,
okay.
and it's basically about the mindset of poor people.
Okay.
Right. So I think you know where I'm going to go with this, but because today I thought it would be interesting that we could talk about this.
Okay, yeah.
The different phases of our life, right? And I think right now compared to years ago, we are in a better phase, right? The first phase, which is no money, like poor with no plan. Then you made more money, but you still don't have a plan. So like quote unquote middle America, let's say. And then, oh, I've made more money, maybe just a little bit more or a lot more, but now I have a plan.
Okay.
Which is either, you know, you're in the rich mindset or you're getting there, right?
Right.
But I want to talk about when we were growing up, right? And you know, we weren't raised with a lot of money. We were poor in a lot of things, right? So I guess I want to first start asking you, when you were poor with no plan, right? Or other poor people that you've spoken to or you met that have no plan, what is like a mindset or like a habit that sadly a lot of people in America that are poor, right? Even middle America people might have this. People that are poor, what's a mindset or habit they have that they got to get rid of because it's detrimental to their mental health and it's going to stop them from making better decisions financially? Like, what do you think? There's something that they got to get rid of.
Well, it's a good question. I think you say it will offend a lot of people.
Yes.
Because a lot of people lack in at least some of these qualities. They might not know it or they might know it.
Okay.
Right? And that is ambition. The want to do something for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And that, unfortunately, I would say you could see it a lot in the poor community.
Okay.
And it's a lack of accountability. Now you could connect that, right? You can connect it to like a victim mindset. A lack of accountability, I feel like it's something that is shown when it comes to people that have no money, but also don't have a plan. Because they're so used to being in an environment where they don't have to like work or they don't have to like strive for something great. They just stay comfortable.
But so are you saying that all people don't have ambition? But like, what if the poor person doesn't have ambitious goals? Like, is there something wrong? I'm just curious. I don't know.
What do you mean?
Like, is it because you're saying they don't have ambition? Like, they're not trying to reach big goals, right? Does everyone need to be ambitious? What do you think? Does everyone need to be ambitious or have big goals?
I mean, I feel like that's debatable, right? I don't feel like everyone needs to have to. It depends what you want in your life, right?
Okay.
Now, if your mindset is, if your dream, if what you want to pursue for in the future is something big, then you need to have a type of ambition that's going to get you there, right? Now, obviously, if you're comfortable and you don't have that mindset and you're glad to stay where you're at, then so be it, right? You don't need to have an ambition. You need to strive for anything. But I don't think that's the case for a majority of people. I think majority of people, either consciously or subconsciously, do want to reach a certain like regimen in life, whether it being super wealthy or at least stable. But to get there, you must put in some type of work. You can't just expect to, be given handouts. And that's what unfortunately, either way is probably a controversial thing to say, but where I believe most poor people fall into, where they feel very, I don't know. I feel like I speak very biasly because I come from a poor neighborhood.
You mean right now, or you mean back in the day? You're saying,
well, back in the day, growing up in a very poor neighborhood in
Jamaica,
Queens, right?
Yeah.
Being able to see how people went about things, but also, at least at the moment, working in an environment where a lot of people are low income, let's say,
Yeah.
right? So I still get to see a portion of what people do
Mm-hmm.
and how people think. And I believe that I forgot my train of thought, but
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
It's until you get your train of thought back. You're saying a lot of these people are giving the handouts don't have this ambition. And it's true, most people have goals, right?
Mhm.
But what is it about poor people or poor communities? And again, I know you're not talking about everyone, but the general, let's say the majority. What is it about poor communities or poor people that makes them this way? That makes them not ambitious, or like gimme, 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 and like they're not really trying hard to reach the result.
I would say,
Like what you've seen in like at work.
I think it's the culture.
How so?
The culture, what people portray, how what people do, right? Because I get it, right? The government. Either way, I'm not a big believer that the government is there to help you, but the government does do certain things to help.
Yeah.
Like the poor, right? They'll give you food stamps. They'll give you some type of voucher, things to help you out. You know, get some money in your account and stuff like that. But I feel like that doesn't promote any type of, growth. Because once you get comfortable and you're constantly getting that, then you just, okay, I'm good where I'm at. I don't need to work hard to get this type of money because I could just stay where I'm at and continue to receive, right? So I believe that's where majority of, unfortunately, the mindset of the poor people are at. And that's what happens when you have no money and you have no plan. When you have no plan, you have nowhere to look forward to go to in life. Plus, you have no money.
Of course, 100%.
So you have there's no way.
So then, how do you think poor people or people in general who are in this bad situation, how can they get out of it? Like maybe with a tip or technique or a mindset change or something that they can actually do, I don't know, to get out of it or slowly get out of it?
Well, I believe personal responsibility is always the answer.
So how does someone build personal responsibility in their mind or in their heart? How do you build that, do you think? Or in your case, how have you done it? Because clearly you don't think like that anymore.
Well, yeah. Holding myself accountable, right? Because like being the first generation in this country, right? Because our parents migrated, we didn't have it as easy either. But at least we were taught that, you have to go out and work for what you got.
Correct.
So that's being accountable. That's being a man. That's being responsible. Understanding that eventually you have to sustain yourself. Eventually you're going to have to sustain a family. And understanding that going out in this world will teach you certain traits, will give you certain characteristics, or you could develop. And all of those, I feel like it's are steps to show you how to be accountable and how to be responsible.
Okay.
Because no one is out here to save you. No one is going to give you handouts. I mean, we could all get lucky at a certain point in our lives.
Yeah.
But are you prepared when that lucky moment arrives? Or are you just expecting to, when that lucky moment arrives, to be given it to you? Because I feel we're all going to get lucky one day, right? We all can get brought an opportunity. But did you prepare yourself? Did you try to work to get there? And then when that opportunity is present in your life, are you just expected to, because you know somebody, for it to be given to you? Or do you have the paperwork, the accolades to show that you deserve it?
Do you have an example of maybe a famous person or someone you know that you feel?
Famous person? At the moment, no.
No.
I can't think of it.
I think you told me one time of, I mean, I don't know, I could be wrong. Maybe I misheard.
Okay.
Stephen Curry and his cousin or something like that.
Stephen Curry's. Oh, okay. Well, oh wow, you just brought me back a memory.
Uh-oh.
I forget.
Be careful.
Not his cousin, his brother.
Steph Curry might watch this.
Right.
All right.
Steph Curry's brother, I believe he's become a great player, at least, or a great role player during this time that he's been in the NBA.
Okay.
But I don't feel like a lot of people would have maybe grasped to his talents, to his hard work, if it wasn't because of his big brother's name. Right? But I do feel like he has put in the work eventually to earn that spot. To make a name. But that's just like a brother superior, an older brother, you could be a younger brother, having talent and being able to bring someone up, but that person knew also how to play the sport.
Okay.
Now, I think a better example, I don't want to downplay anybody, but it would be like someone, I know there's also many brothers in the NBA, and
go ahead. You can be controversial.
What's his name? So I don't know if you know, they call him the Greek Freak, Giannis Antetokounmpo.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
He has a brother in his team that's called Tanastis, I believe, and
in the Bucks, right?
In the Bucks, Milwaukee Bucks, not the greatest of players, but he's just a reserve. He's just someone that sits on the bench, and I don't know how he has a contract, but because his brother's a superstar, I can already imagine, you know.
Okay.
For you to keep me, you have to have my brother on the team. So, but that's all politics. You know, that's political stuff. That's just deals.
Do you think there's a correlation to these two examples you gave to what you were talking about, or about like the opportunity? Did you work for it? A lucky shot?
Right. I mean, I feel like this topic is so broad. I don't want to get too lost into it.
Gotcha.
It's just people need to show that they have some type of ambition if they want to get somewhere in life.
Gotcha.
And they can't show a lack of accountability when it comes to that. Because at the end of the day, that lack of accountability, I feel like that victim mindset is a cope that disguises negative traits in your life.
Okay.
So I feel like if you're able to do that, then you wouldn't fall into this category of no money, no plan. You would eventually move up in life. But what do you think about it?
I would say, and this is going to sound bad, so let me explain. Poor people, and I would put myself there back then. I fell in the same trap. Poor people built something called a slave morality mindset.
Okay.
Slave, and I'm not trying to talk about black people being slaves, and I'm not talking about that, because when we're talking about poor people, it's not just black people. It's also there's tons of white people in this country who are dirt poor, right? You go to Missouri, Louisiana, all that stuff. Hispanics, right? Like us, we're both Hispanic. There's poor people all over, right? What I mean by slave morality mindset is this. This was a concept that a very famous philosopher, German philosopher, came up with, that he thought of. And he wrote about it. There's the slave morality and there's the master morality. But I'm just going to talk about the slave, because that has to do with the poor people, right? Usually, the majority of a country or a group, the majority of times people are poor or middle class, let's say, right? So he wrote. So I wrote this. I thought this was basically the slave morality is when the poor person or the poor masses or group of poor people react. The way they react to oppression is by vilifying the oppressor. So what does that means basically is that when poor people are blaming the rich or the government, or they're putting the blame into the people who are doing better than them. And what then the poor people then do is, what they're doing is that they are calling themselves righteous and good people, right? By what they lack, they make it into a value system. Now, I'm going to explain what that means. So, for example, let's say we got a rich person here and we got the poor person here. The rich person has wealth, right? The poor person has no money, right? So what is the poor person going to say now? He's going to say, well, I'm a good person. That wealthy guy over there, he has all this money. He's a greedy person. I don't have a lot of money. I'm a simple, humble person. I don't have greed, right? So what did he just do? He's making the rich person into this bad guy, or like, look at him. He got everything he wanted. He was just lucky, or he was born into money, or, he had better circumstances than I did. I had no chance. He has all this money. Why? Because he's a greedy person. I don't have all this money, so I'm not greedy. This, right? The person who is wealthy, are they poor? They're not poor, right? They have all the money, right? But he can say, I'm humble. I'm a simple person. I'm humble, right? The rich person can also have a glory of fame. They could be whatever, famous for whatever reason. The poor person, or person who is not known, can say, I'm a humble, simple person. I don't need anyone to know that I'm famous. That rich person, he's a narcissist. So do you see what's happening here? Mm-hmm. Right? Or like, that person over there, the rich, they're so powerful in politics and everything. But you know something? All that politics and all that power they have, they're really corrupt. They're wrathful, right? I don't have any of those things. I'm a simple, humble person, and I'm not wrathful. I'm not violent. I'm not corrupt. So what they're doing is basically they're putting blame on someone else. They're not taking accountability, like what you said, right? And they're just they need to find a scapegoat. That's the term. They got to find someone to blame. So they're going to blame the rich person, because they're like, this is unfair. So because life has been unfair to me, I deserve to be called a good person because I've suffered. I'm poor. I don't have much, and I've suffered, and I've gone through so much stuff that person hasn't probably gone through. So they make themselves mentally feel good, right? By not blaming themselves, right? Because a lot of times people are in denial, right? Now, of course, I'm not saying that all poor people in the whole world, they can get out of their situation and they can improve it. Obviously, I can't say everyone, because maybe there are certain poor people in certain countries, not America.
Yeah, I would only stick to when we're like America, because I think everything else is unfortunate.
Correct. I would probably say America, maybe Europe, right? Because where people have
first world countries.
First world countries, correct. Because maybe third world countries, people don't have those opportunities, right? But let's say from first world countries, especially this country, right? Unless you're disabled, or mentally or physically, then maybe you have an excuse. Mm. But putting those people to the side, so poor people build up this slave morality mindset, right? And they're in denial, because a lot of times, and you kind of mentioned this, people fantasize. I want this. I want to be this famous piano player, or this famous player, but they're in love with the result. They're not in love with the process.
Not in love with the journey.
Yeah. They're not in love with the journey, but they love the result. But in reality, what's really happening? They want the result, but they're not willing to put in the work. So they're really in love with just the result. They're not in love with the work, which means that they don't really want it. Because if you really wanted something, you would do it. If you really wanted something, you would do it 100%. And this is what makes us humanity. This what makes us humans amazing. Have you ever heard of the philosopher Immanuel Kant?
No.
He says something basically. He basically says this: what makes humans so unique from the rest of the universe is that we have the ability to put the direction into our lives. We have the ability to change our fate. We can do that. Of course, with God's help, but putting God to a side, humans have that ability. We have the ability. Nothing else in the world or in the universe can do that. A rock stays a rock. You know what I mean? Humans, we can change. We have the potential. That's the word. The potential to do that. So poor people, you need to get out of denial, and it hurts. What I would say is a two-step process. You got to get out of denial. You have to get out of denial. And the way you do that is how? You need to use your free will. In order to use your free will, you got to use your free will. I think we've said this before.
I think that's a very interesting point, getting out of denial, regardless if it being true or not, right? Because a lot of people will blame, favoritism or racism or the white people control this.
Yeah.
They got connections here, they got connections there. This person gets a handout, I don't. Regardless of it being true or not, stop giving yourself that excuse. Because you don't know if you actually put the work in, how could things end up?
Correct.
Because if we keep putting ourselves that excuse, then yeah. That might be true, that might not be true, but you'll never know if it was true or not if you don't put yourself in that situation or try. So
true.
That's what I was gonna say when it came to like,
and also maybe
the part.
Person who got the handout or got the good connection, just like what you said earlier, maybe they did the work, and superficially
we might not see it.
Correct, because you only see a certain perspective, right? You know how like in those movies, it's like you see, oh, this is my perspective, but then you're like, let's look at the backstory, and it's a whole different story, whole different story, right? So, right, I feel like a lot of these poor people, you got to get out of denial, forget what other people are doing, focus on you, get out of denial. It's going to hurt, but you got to get out of it. And then number two, you have to ask yourself a question, and this is something that Mark Manson, he wrote a book about this, is basically you have to ask yourself, what pain am I willing to suffer? What pain am I willing to suffer? If you can ask yourself that question and you can think, okay, this is what I really want in life. I'm willing to work 60 hours a week, do tons of overtime to get to that goal. I'm willing to play 5 hours to become, 20 hours a day to become the NBA player, whatever the case is. I'm willing to suffer for this amount of time to reach that goal.
Right.
And you actually do it. So if you get out of denial, you forget what everyone else is doing, and you realize, hey, listen, just like what you said, even if it's true or not, this is my life. Their life does not, I have no control over that. I only have this, and I'm in the now. And what pain am I willing to suffer? I think if people would think like that, and these are just simple things, you will get out of that poor mindset. Poor mindset with no plan.
No, yeah, I totally agree with you.
100%. And I think that's what you have to do. But so let's say now the person does that. So now they change their mindset. So now let's say they actually made a little bit more money.
Right.
And maybe you want to talk about on how you went from being poor to making more money. Maybe briefly you could talk about that. But now you made more money with no plan. Is there anything in particular you want to say? Because this is where middle America falls. 80% of the United States, I don't know if you knew this, 80% of the United States is middle America. Then there's the 10% of the wealthiest in America, and then the 10% that's the most poor in America.
Okay.
But 80% is middle America, and right now, where you're making more money, but you have no plan. That's middle America. What would you say about that?
I feel like majority of people, obviously, definitely fall into that. The middle class.
Correct, of course.
Either you're lower middle class, or upper middle class.
Yeah.
You fall into that category. And technically we're the ones who make America run, but that's for another day. I believe it depends how you go about it, right? We've all started at a situation where we had no money. Now we're making a little bit more money.
A little bit more.
Regardless is that we got a better job, we got a promotion. We started at working at a different place for a different industry, or in a union now or not, whatever the case is for any job. But it depends how you go about it, right? Because I believe I feel that this is the danger area. This is the area where obviously the worst area to be is in the no money, no plan.
Correct.
But this is the danger area. This is the area where, like, for you to pass on to this level, you must be able to control certain habits. Because now you've been able to accumulate or to get something you didn't have. Right? You had no money. Now you have money. And now that you have money and you're able to see what you're able to obtain, what you're able to buy, what you're able to enjoy now, you start to fall in love with it. Right? Oh, before I couldn't do this, now I can, and now I enjoy it. So let me continue. And just how money comes, money goes as well.
Very quickly.
Very quickly. And it's very easy for us to swipe that card, and to not notice how little things are accumulating. So yeah, I'm making all this money. Cool. I've gotten this promotion, but I don't have a plan. And like, I don't have a plan. I'm just living paycheck to paycheck.
Correct.
I'm making good enough money to pay my rent, to pay my bills, to pay my car note, my insurance, whatever I need to pay, maybe go out with some friends, party a little bit, but I'm back to $0.
Uh-huh.
Oh, but don't worry, next week I'm gonna get another paycheck. You get another paycheck, okay, now you got money. I could continue paying what I need to pay and hang out. But you come back to the same result. It's like a cycle. It's like, I'm finally making money, feels great, but I'm just gonna stay here. And I feel a lot of people do it subconsciously without noticing. Like, they want to save money. They have that mind, right? I want to get there. I'm going to save this amount of money. I'm going to save that amount of money. But because of their spending habits, they don't. And because of them having no plan, which is the main important part, right?
Yeah.
Is where they mess up. Because I don't believe America has a savings problem. They have a spending problem.
That's good. Right? That's good.
And I learned this from, well, shout out to him, the Patrick Bet-David podcast.
Great podcast.
Great podcast. He teaches a lot of great things. And that's one of the things he talks about, right? How America doesn't have necessarily a saving problem. You could. Every American can. But it's more of a spending habit. So, oh, I want this, I want that, I want to go on vacation there, I want to go on vacation there. I want all the nice stuff, right? They start seeing their money go up, so they start upgrading their lifestyle. Instead of continuing keeping that same humble lifestyle they've always been living while their money goes up. And while the money goes up and you still live that same lifestyle, then I believe that's, in a sense, somewhat of a plan, right? You're getting somewhere. You're not increasing your lifestyle because of you getting more money. You're staying at where you're at. You're seeing your money increase. Okay. But the way you live life stays the same. Meaning, if I'm cooking at home every day, I'm cooking at home every day. I'm not going out to eat every day. Right? And that's how I'm saving money. Not because I'm making more money. I'm going to cut down on, eating at home. I'm going to start eating out. And then you're the money that you're using starts to go up, and that means less money to save. So I believe this is like the danger area where you could eventually, if you don't have a plan, fall back into the no money, no plan. Or you could go to the next step and have money as you are currently having right now, and have a plan. But this is like the area where, like, you either fall one way or fall the other, or you can stay the same. But I do believe eventually majority of people, if they continue with the same habits, they'll fall into the no money, no plan. Because this for so long, you could just stay here. And I feel like eventually you'll fall into one.
And why do you think people, as soon as they make more money, they upgrade their lifestyle immediately? I know you mentioned because they want the nice stuff. Is there anything else? Like, why people do that immediately? Because it's true.
It's true. I feel like, I don't know, social media plays a big part.
I can see that, yeah.
Social media, you see, wow, this person has this person has that person is flaunting this, that person is flaunting that. It's not a bad thing to watch, right? Maybe it motivates you, seeing someone else live that type of life. But then there's also that, oh, I want that. And if you want it, great, but you have to understand, to get there, it isn't just necessarily just having money. You need to have a plan as well. And I feel like a lot of people forget that. We can also fall into you could also see this from a different perspective. You can have money and save money, but you don't have a plan on what to do with that money, right? So we've talked about already the people that have money but don't save anything, just living paycheck to paycheck. But we can also talk about the people that are making that money, are saving that money, but have no plan. What are you doing with that money? Right? Because we don't live as back in the day where you could save that money and buy a house. Right? And eventually, you know, pay off your house and sell your house, whatever. We live in different times.
It's a lot more expensive.
It's a lot more expensive. You actually have to use your money to make you money. And there are different ways to invest, of course. Maybe we'll get into that later. But that's also only because you're saving money doesn't mean you have a plan. Doesn't mean you're doing something with that money. That money is just still. You're not multiplying that money. You're not putting that money in an investment somewhere where it can make you double back, either in the short term or long term. So that's also having no plan, regardless of you having money. But I think the important part of here is having a plan. Making money is also very important, but you must be able to map yourself out something to make something happen if that's the type of life you want to live. What do you think?
Can you be my investment advisor?
No.
No, I definitely agree with what you have to say. And I think it's important for people to know this message that you're saying. I would say that when I enter that phase of more money but no plan, what I realized is that Middle America stays in Middle America. This is one reason. Another reason is because so many financial vehicles or many financial plans or a lot of the financial things that are offered out there, like a normal Roth or like a mortgage, a lot of these things that are marketed to the Middle America, they're just financial traps.
Right, okay, yeah.
They're just traps to keep Middle America in Middle America.
What do you mean?
Like, for example, and I'm just going to talk a little bit about it, but for example, two quick things. Number one, many people say, and I remember years ago when I got into this phase, the first thing I did was I opened up a Roth IRA. I don't have one anymore, and I'll explain why, but I used to have one. And I used to, like, whatever money I had left, I would save it into the Roth IRA. Now, I know there are stories and there are people who, with a Roth IRA, became, they became millionaires once they reached like 59 and a half, 60, whatever. They had a couple $1 million in there, right? Because that was their goal. When I retire, I want to have a couple $1 million in there.
That's 60 though.
So here comes that's one of the problems. The problem is that, okay, you have a couple $1 million, but what's the trade-off? You're giving all this money to these companies and they're investing the money for you. They really are, right? But you can't touch the money. You can't touch it. Once you give, you can't touch it. And if you want to take it out, they tax you, right? I think the last time I checked was like maybe 10%, or maybe it could be a little bit more.
Okay.
So to take out my own money, you're going to tax me 10% if you take it out before 59 and a half, 60.
But yeah.
Everything, because that's how they make their money, because they don't want you to take out your own money. They don't want you to do that.
Yeah.
So you're giving all this money, but these companies are using your money and thousands or millions of other people's monies to do whatever they want to make themselves more rich. And yeah, whatever. You're making your 10% return every year. And maybe, yes, when you retire, also, there's no guarantee you're going to make it to 59 and a half, right?
Yeah. You'll be working so hard your whole life. And
okay, fine. You'll retire with a couple million. Is it better to retire with a couple million than with nothing? Of course, 100%. Obvious. That's obvious. But there's ways where you can have more control of your money and do better things with your money, make more money, right now, or in a couple of years or in 10 years instead of 59 and a half. So, but these things, Roth IRA, 401k, right? These are all gimmicks to keep people trapped, right? One of the biggest one is the mortgage. Oh God. I did some research and I think maybe it's in Latin, but I read this in a book called The Blueprint to Financial Freedom, right? Where basically what they mentioned, and I wrote it down, this word mortgage, right? This word comes from the 1300s. And when you translate it, again, I forgot which language, maybe Latin, I don't remember. It means death pledge. Death pledge. Oh, wow. That's what it actually means. Because this is one of the ways banks make money. If you want to become wealthy, of course, you got to have a way to make a lot of money, of course, obviously. But you have to play the game like how banks play. The richest institutions in the world, one of the most richest institutions are banks. And if you look at what banks invest or buy, most of things that their banks are buying is gold, physical gold. They have a lot of their money is tied up in life insurance policies, right? Because whole life insurance policies grow at a 3 to 5% interest free. They don't get taxed, and it always grows and it never goes down. The economy can't affect life insurance policies. Life insurance policies, a little bit is in cash, right? Gold, and this is where their money's really at. So why aren't we the normal people? Why aren't we thinking like banks? Banks are one of the most successful institutions. So let's think like them. Let's see how they invest their money, how they make their money. But one of the ways banks make money, banks don't make money, right, by keeping houses, right? Obviously, if you default on a payment, the bank takes it back.
Yeah.
But banks don't make money by taking back houses. The way they make money is you buy the house from them, and what do? Then they give you a mortgage
with interest. Yeah.
With interest,
yeah.
Right? I found this. I thought this was pretty interesting. The way a mortgage is structured, only 30% of monthly mortgage payments actually go towards the principal every month. So if you're given, for example, if your mortgage is $1,000 every month, right? Again, just to keep it simple, only $300 every month is going towards principal.
This is the average American?
Well, what do you mean?
Like, because all of this also depends on like your credit score.
So okay, I see what you're saying. Yes. So this is most mortgages. This is how they're structured.
Okay, gotcha.
This is how they're structured. Also, to get a mortgage, your credit score has to be decent, like maybe 600, mid 600s and up.
Okay.
Like if you have a terrible credit score, like no one's going to give you a mortgage, right? The bank's not going to do that.
I see what you're saying. Okay.
So 30% is only going towards principal. 70% is going towards interest. So 70% of the $1,000 is just going into the bank's pocket. And that's the way it's structured. If you complain to the bank, you know what they're going to tell you? Get the hell out of here.
That's why it takes you 30 years to pay it off.
Correct. And they purposely do it like that. Only by the time you get to year 13 to 15, that's when more money of the 1,000 starts going more towards principal. The further you get into 30 years, that's when more money finally goes into principal and not interest. So by the time, so if you only start paying more principal after 15 years, that means that if you bought a house that was $300,000 after 30 years at a 4% interest rate, of course, today's day interest rates are a lot higher.
Yeah, but just as an example.
As an example, in the interest rate, 4% interest rate, you have paid $215,000 and $215,607 in interest alone. You could have used that to buy another house.
That's crazy.
These are financial traps that these banks and the governments and private institutions are marketing towards the middle class America to keep them hooked and middle class forever. Because the middle class, they're making more money, they have more income, they have more savings, they have a better credit score. So the government and all these private institutions are like, all right, let's take advantage of them, keep them hooked on these programs for 30, 40 years. So whatever, by the time that they retire, we've taken advantage of them. We'll give them something, whatever, to make them feel happy. But these institutions or whatever is selling to middle America, they've taken advantage of them and they took whatever. But you're right. It's important to, if you're here, get out of here and go now into have money or making more money with the plan now.
Interestingly enough, I feel like that's also like a lot of this has to do with knowledge.
Correct.
People just stick to like, oh, okay, I'm going to do this because that's what the average American does. I'm going to buy a house. I'm going to,
the American dream.
The American dream, right?
Yes.
Going to buy a house, going to live in a nice area. I'm going to pay it for the next 30 years, have a car, have a family. All that sounds nice. Very sweet.
Yes.
But we have to, start nitpicking at the
American dream.
The American dream, right? We have the good. Now we have to look at the bad, right? Now we start looking at the bad. 30 years, you're paying this. Like you said, if you do it at a 4% rate, $300,000, you're paying another house, basically.
Yeah, you said it, yeah.
So,
or two, maybe.
Right. And not having this knowledge and just sticking to whatever the basic is going to cause a lot of people to continue to make these mistakes. But if people have the knowledge, let me look into this, let me look into that, not naming anything specific at the moment, but there are better ways to be able to, in a sense, pay off things faster, and to not have to be paying for another house while you're paying for one. So that's where the whole plan thing comes, right? Knowledge is power. When you gain knowledge, when you find ways to make your plan, whatever your plan is, or make it even better, that money that you're saving, you can even use it for better things and make a better plan. I would say.
So let's say, because I think right now we're at the stage where it's like we're in between the middle America, but also getting into more money with a plan. So we definitely have a plan
because you're gaining that knowledge.
We've gained the knowledge. We have a plan, and right now you and I are in the stage where we're just trying to make more money in our careers and our jobs, right? So what is it that you've learned? Because obviously we don't have those poor mindsets anymore. What is it that you could say, mindset-wise or action-wise? What is it that now? What's this new mindset you have? What is it that has changed? What's the difference now that we are, let's say, borderline now into the more money with a plan? And like, what can you teach the people who are trying to reach there, who are poor with no money, or they have more money but no plan?
I feel like I'm going to stick to something very basic, but something that has to be repeated all the time.
Okay.
Right? So it's not have the victim mindset like we spoke at first, right?
In the beginning, okay.
Take personal accountability for everything.
Okay.
Right? Once you take personal accountability for everything, you're not going to be in denial or use any excuse of why you're in the position that you're in. Right? Okay. You start off with that. And understanding that, for example, using myself as an example, if you want to strive and have success the same way I would want, right? Be financially free, you have to understand that the journey that comes along with it is going to involve a lot of suffering, is going to involve a lot of pain, right? There's no highs without any lows. Understanding that you might have to put certain things to the side. You might have to wait to do those things, right? Understanding that even the plans you make now, they might not come out as you want it to be. You might fail again and again, but you need to keep updating that plan. If you have a bad spending habit and you keep continuously falling into debt, which has been my case in my life in the past, you need to figure out, how do I stop doing this, right? My plan to get out of debt hasn't worked. How can I update my plan, right? Because life is hitting me here, life is hitting me there, and I gotta pay this, and I gotta pay that. But understanding that to reach where you want to reach, it's gonna come with a lot of failures, and you have to be willing to go through those failures to eventually get where you want to get.
Would you say that suffering and pain is an ongoing process that will never stop?
Of course. But I think there's a lot of like perspective towards that, right?
Also,
if you're gonna view it as something bad, then yeah, you're most likely to give up. But if you have an understanding of that, to get where you want to get, it's going to bring that, you're going to see pain and suffering at a different perspective. You're going to understand, for me to get where I want, I need to go through this. I need to overcome this. I need to battle this out. Not, give up. You need to view it from, okay, I see this coming. This is going to backtrack me. Let me see how I could battle it to be able to overcome it. But it's like, we all have pain and suffering. Some of us just have better ones than others.
So are you saying that solving problems and overcoming your hurdles is what brings you happiness? Because happiness is active or more passive? What do you think?
Well, talking about happiness, I don't think happiness, right? Because this is the topic of making money, and having a plan.
Correct.
Right? Which involves you having to fail and to going through pain and suffering.
Correct. Yes.
Which could cause you to not necessarily be happy at the moment.
Okay.
When you're going through all of this. I just don't think happiness, especially as a man, is that important up in the scale. I believe that you have to see at what you're doing, right? To be able to obtain that happiness. Because happiness isn't just all of a sudden I'm happy. You have to be able to work for that happiness in a sense, right? I was able to write down, like, are you a man of honor? Do you continue to learn? Am I providing for my family? Am I a respected person amongst individuals? Am I competent? Am I successful in what I do? I feel like if you start looking at these like indicators, it will, whether you realize it or you don't, it will lead to happiness.
If you're accomplishing them, of course.
If you're accomplishing this, of course, right? So you have to start looking at your life. Am I doing this? Am I achieving this? Am I growing in this? So by having, in a sense, a bit of pride in what you're doing and continuously growing, you won't even notice how while you're doing this, you're obtaining happiness little by little. Because you're not only helping yourself out, you're helping the people around you as well.
Interesting. That's an interesting, rich mindset. I've definitely read this. You're 100% right, because it's true. And I think once you hit those goals and these indicators, as you're saying, you don't need to convince yourself or say, I'm trying to go after happiness, because you will be happy.
Right.
But not in the Hollywood sense of happiness, right? We're like, oh, life is perfect, no pain, no suffering, because, right?
I don't like, especially as a man, that's not
realistic.
That's not realistic. It's like, oh yeah, I wake up, I got nothing to worry about. No, you got things to worry about, right? And it's not, I don't feel like it's happiness what you're supposed to chase. I feel like it's freedom. Once you chase freedom, happiness will come along with that. Don't worry about it, because once you achieve that freedom, there are so many things you don't have to worry about because you'll have it settled already. And by realizing all of that hard work that you've put in and all these attributes or characteristics or traits that you've been able to develop through all this hard work, there's a better chance that your happiness will be prolonged. You know what I'm saying?
100%. No, 100%. There's a book I read by, I mentioned the author, Mark Manson, and I read other psychologists who wrote this, but in the human psyche, we as humans, the problem, and I think you hit it, the problem is, and then I'll talk about the rich mindset that I've learned. People chase happiness. They chase it, right? But they're never fulfilled. Why? It's very simple. Because people think, once I reach this goal, I'll be happy. Once I make $100K or $1 million or 20 million, I'll be happy. The problem is that let's say you reach your goal, you will be happy temporarily. But then what happens? Your mind, your goals, and your expectations reset. And when they reset, now that you have $1 million, that becomes your normal. That's normal now. It's not the goal anymore. You're not chasing anymore. And guess what? You're not as happy now. You might be at a 10, but now you'll go back to average.
Yeah.
Because the human psyche, we as humans, we are built to always continue to learn, to grow, to conquer, to expand, to build. That's why humans, ever since we've been alive, we've continued to grow and build and learn,
and conquer
and do all these things, because that's how we're built, to continue. We don't stop.
Yeah.
So that's why. So what that really is saying, and you already answered it, is that happiness is an active process.
Yes.
There's never going to be a time where you're pain free. It's an active process. You're never going to be pain free, or there's never going to be suffering. The thing is, you want to have the good problems. That's what you want to hope for, pray for, and that's what you want to try to achieve by the work that you're doing, to have the good problems.
Yeah.
and to continue, right? Now, it's interesting because, tell me if I'm right or wrong, one of the things of the rich mindset with the plan is that, your indicators is not just you and your family, but are you respected with other individuals in the community, right? Are you learning? Like you're growing mentally, physically, right?
Yeah.
Is that what you're trying to say?
Because happiness isn't just a one-way
street,
right? I feel like it broadens. I mean, it branches out, right? Family, kids, watching them growing up, seeing what they do, your wife, right? Work, businesses, friendships. That all comes into the role of happiness.
Correct.
But what are you doing to achieve it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's not, you can't just jump to it. Are you respected amongst your friends? Are you being a great father? And your businesses, are they striving? Are you employing more people and teaching others, right? While you do all of that and you achieve greatness, happiness comes along. Because you're like, especially like if you find your purpose, you're fulfilling it, right? This is something you really want to do. You fulfill your purpose. You feel good because you're not only doing this for yourself, but you're helping others as well.
Correct. I think a good way to summarize this, what you just said, I actually read this in a quote by a rabbi, Rabbi Hillel, thousands of years ago, right? Rabbi Hillel, he said this. You've probably heard this. It's a very famous quote. It's been even mentioned in many non-Jewish books as well, 1,000 times. It's, if I am not for myself, who is for me? And if I am for myself, what am I? And if not now, when? 3 questions. I'll say it again. If I'm not for myself, who is for me? So let's stop there. This is what we're talking about, accountability. You need to, if you want to achieve something, you got to do it. Because, we as humans, humanity, yes, God is there. God is with us, right? Humans, we're not alone, but we're on our own. Because obviously, right, I believe in God, right? You believe in God. Oh, you don't? Right, I believe in God. So I believe, right, that God is watching you.
Yes.
There's rewarding justice, whatever, right? But putting that to aside, we're not alone, but God gives us free will. He's like, do what you got to do. I'm going to watch. I'll intervene when I intervene. But you do what you got to do. You got the freedom.
Yeah.
But we're on our own. So just like you said, no one's going to come and save you. No one's going to give you a handout. Unless maybe
those are exceptions.
Maybe you win the lottery or you marry someone rich. Maybe.
Yes,
right.
Those
okay.
are exceptions. We don't count those.
We don't count those, right?
Yeah.
But if you're not for yourself, then who is for you? Nobody. You got to make it happen.
Yes.
The next part is, and if I am for myself, what am I? So if you're only doing things for yourself or your selfish goals only for you, then what are you?
Great way to put it. I like that quote.
You're greedy, you're selfish, and there's nothing bigger. There's nothing bigger in your life. There's nothing better for you. And the last one is, and if not now, when? When are you going to do it? Because I know you want to say that. I just want to say this.
Maybe.
We have no control of time. You and I don't. We have no control. We don't know when we're going to go. We don't know when we're going to die. Sadly, a lot of people die young. We don't know. So if we don't know, we don't control time. We don't know when we're going to die, right? Or right? And if you don't do anything positive, then what are you doing? You're wasting your time. Because that's why that cliche expression, time, what is it? Time is
money.
Time is money, but time is valuable. Time is priceless.
Time is priceless. Because
you're not going to get it back and you don't know when you're going to go. So if you're not doing anything positive right now, then what are you doing? Then you're wasting time, right? They say a human really only has, on average, 4,000 weeks. That's it. 4,000 weeks is almost 80 years old.
Gotcha.
Right? That's what they say. Average human lives up to 80 for now. So you usually have 4,000 weeks. If you think like that, it's like, oh man, what am I doing with my time?
Right.
Let me do something now. So yeah, you wanted to say something. But I love this quote. This is a great quote.
It's a great quote. Could you repeat it actually?
Yeah. It's Rabbi Hillel said this. If I'm not for myself, who is for me? If I am for myself, what am I? And if not now, when?
I like that.
The third part?
The third part. Can you repeat the third part?
And if not now.
No, before that.
Oh, so the second. And if I am for myself, what am I? Or the first part. If I'm not myself, who is for me? That's the whole.
No, okay. The second part then. Repeat it.
Oh, and if I'm for myself, what am I?
Right. I believe, and I don't have any at the moment statistical information if this is true or not, but talking from a self perspective, I believe a lot of men find joy or find purpose in living for others than themselves.
That's true.
Right? When you are providing, when you are giving it everything for your family, for your kids, you find that joy. And you don't expect nothing in return. Maybe just a thank you is enough. Right? Gratitude is enough.
Yeah.
Because obviously you do things for yourself so you can enjoy the joys of life. But watching others enjoy the hard work that you've put in is much more fulfilling than doing it yourself.
Or than me doing the work because I get to watch.
Right. No, I'm saying that it's much more fulfilling someone else be happy because of what you've been able to create than you enjoying what you've been able to create because of the work you did.
Got you.
Right? So, like, I have a kid. I have a son. I see him enjoy all the things that I've been able to give to him to provide for him at such a young age that it brings me so much happiness.
Yeah.
Because I'm able to do that.
Yeah.
And I prefer giving it to him first than giving it to myself.
Got you.
And that brings me much more fulfillment in my life, much more happiness. So I feel like if you live, you just live for yourself because that's being selfish.
Correct.
You have to expand towards others. And like at the end of the quote said, if you don't do it now, when are you going to do it?
Tomorrow?
Like, you're wasting time. And I think a lot of us in this world waste time because we all have a purpose. We all have, how do you say done?
A gift.
We all have a gift. I believe it. We all have a gift from God. So use it. Yes. Use it to help others. Use it to help yourself. But if you're not using it, you're just a waste. It sounds so bad, but
no, and there's many people who do live a wasteful life. They do. I guess maybe in another episode we could talk about like how to find your purpose or how to find your gift, because how do you know what you're good at, right? But I think we could talk about something. But I think that's why a lot of rich people or a lot of these big people, like, right, if you see them, right, they have huge families a lot of the times, and they have like people that work for them, and they maintain a lot of people because it's not just about themselves, it's about everyone else that they're trying to help out, right?
Oh, I would hope.
Yeah.
That's maybe the case with some of them. I don't know about all of them, but
some of them, like for example, like I think Andrew Tate has like maybe a lot of people on payroll. His family, his payroll.
He's a guy I definitely like to watch and enjoy his content. But he preaches a lot about living for others instead of living for yourself.
Correct.
So I would definitely agree with that, and to not waste time, do it now.
Correct.
Because you never know what tomorrow holds.
100%. So. And I think when people watch this, right, I would definitely agree with you as well. Actual things to do now: get out of the slave morality mindset, be accountable for what you're doing.
There's steps to this.
Realize that there's no savior out for you. Realize that, guess what? All these private institutions, they're going to target you if you're in middle America to keep you hooked. And I think, Socrates says this. He says, ignorance is the only evil. Now, I don't agree with that 100%, but ignorance is something that can bring you down completely. Right. So if you don't open up your mind and learn about your finances, let's say, and you don't come up with a plan, then you're going to be one of these people that waste their lives. Right? So you want to see the richest people or the richest institutions, what have they done? You might not do the same levels they're doing.
Yeah.
Billions of dollars and millions of dollars, but maybe at the end of your life you can have $10 million, $15 million. If you are worth more than $10 million, you are considered the 1% of the world. Right? Anywhere from 1 million to 9 million, 10 million, you are 10% of the world if you're worth or you have that money, right? So look at what the banks are doing. That's how I like to think. What are the banks doing, right? We have a plan to open our own little company, have our trust, our LLC, and underneath that trust, buy assets and put it underneath that company, that holding, that trust, right? And put assets, properties in landlord-friendly states, put more money, have more power. We're also going to get, use some of that money not only to invest in real estate and smart, like single homes, multifamily complexes and homes and stuff like that,
right.
but also use that money to invest in gold and have different multiple whole life insurance policies that not are only growing at 3 to 6% every single year, but we can use that money to create our own banking system. So we don't have to rely or take out loans of other banks and make them rich. We can create our own system. We can have our own banking system, take out our own loans, right? Use the money, not once, but use the money again and again and again. Reuse the same money, and it stays in our system, and it continues to grow, and we leave a legacy, and we leave death benefits for our family and so forth. So we definitely have a plan, right? And again, these are not, it's not like it's so complicated, right? It's not like you're day trading, which day trading is very complex, right? In the stock market. This is just knowing what are the banks investing in, which, by the way, you can just do a Google search, read a good book, and know what they're doing. Just do what they do.
Right.
Again, maybe not at the same scale, but at your pace with the amount of money that you can do, you'll start to snowball the effect, right? What we're trying to do, we're going to snowball it, and we're going to grow our money and plans to leave a legacy to help a ton of people in our inner circle, but also outside of our inner circle and fulfill a purpose.
Yeah. And I feel like maybe later on we could get into an episode
100%.
What we're doing in a sense, right? Because we're doing the whole life insurance, the gold, the investments into our company, and how we're going to do the HELOC system, right? That's not something we've even spoken about yet.
Not yet, yes.
But maybe later on we can break that down, maybe teach others, see how we're going to do it. But I feel like at the end of the day, we've understood, right? To get there, you have to realize that this victim mentality is not it. And you must take full accountability. But I feel like an important thing is the people you hang around with. They say that you are a sum of the 5 people you hang around with the most, right? So if you're able to name these 5 people, break it down, you have to really ask yourself, what does this person do? Has this person done something for themselves? What value does this person bring? And so on and so forth. One question I always ask myself with the friendships I have around my own brotherhood, right, is what value does this person bring into my life? Because at the end of the day, that's the most important thing. What value does this person bring into my life? And I feel like as long as you're able to break that down, you'll be able to succeed no matter what.